Linda Hamilton is my name. I was born and raised in Louisiana. So most of my young childhood was Louisiana until right at age 15. And I saw a lot in Louisiana, childhood, and that childhood experience is never forgotten. And at age 12, I just wanted something better for myself. I was the only one of 12 siblings to attend church, but my family always would be praying, but I'm the one that would go to church on Sunday out of 12, and I'm number 7 of 12. And so when I learned the power of prayer, my prayer was take me out of Louisiana. So in 1982, relatives came to visit in Louisiana. We celebrated 4th of July together a lot. And when they got ready to leave, I jumped in a car. The night before, it was like a little angel or something that says, pack your bag. And I got a brown paper bag, grocery bag. And I put clothes in it, just enough that fit in that brown bag. And when it came time for my relatives to leave the next day, and my cousins, my favorite cousin, Eugene, I got in the car. And my mother couldn't get me out. She pulled and yanked, and I was holding on to the seat. That's how I was determined to leave Louisiana. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like the atmosphere. And I didn't like KKK coming through our town. At that age, I didn't know what KKK stood for. That's why I still say KKK. But I learned in Oregon what it stood for. But in Louisiana, I knew to run and get in the house when we saw it, because my mom, which was Madia, Madia would say, run, get in the house, run, get in the house. And so us kids would just run when we saw them come down to the town with the white sheets on and KKK written in blacks. And my cousin Henry would stand out there with a bat. And he had this big afro, and he would just stand there with a bat as they would ride down in the truck. And they burnt his sister's house down, and to this day, I think that was to get back at Henry for being out there with the bat. And his sister's son, Luke, our cousin, was burned up in the house. And there was never justice for that. But what has always stuck with me, and I've always questioned, but nowadays I know, but as a child you didn't know, was why was the sheriff, Mr. Lincoln's son, Vaughn, was on that truck with those Ku Klux Klan, with the KKK. Now I know it's Ku Klux Klan, but he was always on that truck with them, and his dad was our sheriff of the town. So I didn't like it. I didn't like hate. I thought Louisiana, as a child, that was the only place had hate and racism. I had no idea it was everywhere. And I had no idea I would land in Oregon, because I left Louisiana, and my relative, we went to Vegas. They lived it in Vegas. But I had an aunt in Salem here, and she came and got me from Vegas. And that's how I ended up in Oregon. And Oregon has been good to me, except for the battles of racism and ignorance. At 15, as I went to school here in Salem, McKay High School, the first thing carved in my wooden desk was KKK. And I raised my hand, and Mr. Freeman, my science teacher, came over to my desk, and I said, "This is on my desk." He didn't know my history. He didn't know my childhood. But all I knew, 3 Ks meant something bad. And he said, "Honey, see me after class," as he pat me on the shoulders. It was Mr. Freeman, who was white male, that educated me on what KKK stood for and the history of KKK here in Oregon, and how some of the largest organizations was in Roseburg and the Sundown Laws in Oregon and all that. And I became curious. So when I finished high school and went to college, right at University of Oregon, I was curious as to history here. And so I dug into it. And then I asked myself, why did I come here? I'm outnumbered, because I was thinking all the white people, compared to where I come from, there was a lot of blacks, and we stood together. We were raised in the village, and we cared for one another, raised each other, relatives and cousins and aunts and neighbors. And here I was surrounded by a lot of whites, and I thought, I'm outnumbered. But my best friend was white, and I was the only black girl in my high school class. I would go to games, and they would say, look at that black girl. That's in Turner, Oregon, football game, Cascade High School there. But I learned that my best allies was white. So I stayed in Oregon. I wouldn't go move anymore. When I left Louisiana, I said I would never tolerate racism again. And I didn't. I started my government job here in 1987. And ever since, in the workplace, I've battled issues of racism, discrimination. I've succeeded in a lawsuit against Oregon Department of Corrections, Lane County government. I pursued lawsuit against race profiling, but there was dishonesty, lying, covering up, failed to give report. That's by the police of this town. And my office is right there at the sheriff's office. The guy that stopped me and lied worked for the sheriff's office. The sheriff lied like my officers don't profile. I've been in the system. April will be 34 years. That's a lot of racism in police department. What we're dealing with today is just because people have phones and they're able to video and record. Officers say things and investigations done and dishonesty, and they don't want to give up the police report. A complainant have a right to the police report. I think they have a right to investigation report. If you have nothing to hide from your officers, you should give up the information. When I was profiled, that officer said the victim called him of a burglary that was March of 2016, and here it was February of 2017. That victim said, no, I never called that officer. I was profiled with no doubt. I could tell by the way the officer approached me. I could tell by the way the officer left my car once he realized I was not who he was looking for. But because the black male got in my car, who was my friend's husband, and we were all together, I was profiled. You don't do a burglary of almost 12 months ago, and then say the victim call you and the victim says no. And then when we ask for your investigative report, you don't give it, you don't provide it. I still have issues with that today because I know that goes on. I know it goes on. There are bad apples in the police department. I've had to sue Lane County due to harassment in the workplace, due to me being seen as less than a human being when an employee played an anthrax hawk on me and harassed me in the workplace, where just recently, just maybe a week ago, a person who did that anthrax hawk was sentenced to prison. The person got sentenced to prison. But why did I not get the same investigation? Why did I not? My manager wouldn't even call the police to investigate. I had to do it. Until this world learned to see blacks as human beings and have that mindset that we're all human beings, we'll never get justice. We'll never get due process. And that's what happened to me the times I've had to go to court. I won that case in court. I don't stand up to go to court just to be gone. It costs money. But I believe in justice. And if I come to the understanding that you're wrong and you're violating policy and you're treating me different than others in the workplace, if I have to pursue lawsuit, that's what I do. When I pursued Department of Corrections, that's what I did due to discrimination, retaliation for reporting brutality, failing to promote me when I'm qualified and equal, but because I spoke up against brutality and stuff that goes on, that's misconduct. It's not allowed. So I've had a lot of experience. I've had white supremacist swastika in a government agency above our gun lockers. And what do the white staff do? Me being the only black person in that workforce comes to me, to my office door, say, Linda, have you seen that white supremacist swastika back there? Come here, let me show you something. Well, there's 3 white males and a Latino male standing there. And I look up there and I go, who put that up there? Get it down now. In the workplace, right over here of Lane County government. Parole and probation. Law enforcement officer. And not one of them white staff stood up there to get it down. It was the Latino guy. David Munoz got up on a chair and pulled that down. Well, it was Adolf Hitler. They put it in a frame, oak frame, where Adolf Hitler is flying his flag with the swastika, and put it up in the office. That's how much people go around and really want to see if it's safe in the workplace. That was an employee that did that. An employee. I was harassed. I was black banana put in my mailbox as if monkey, here's your banana, or monkey, here's your black penis. And their diversity person that they had at Lane County government did not even know what a swastika was. I had to get on the computer, look it up on the internet, and send them information of this swastika and what it means. When me and the Hispanic Latinx are the one walked the big oak frame picture over to the HR of the county here. We walked that over there. I had to push for an investigation to find out who put it up there. They never. That's because they didn't want to find out who put it up there. They did an investigation. I had to send them questions of what this. I see swastikas today and I go in rage because I'm thinking, wow, as my coworker once told me, Linda, they work right among you. A lot of them was in Roseburg. They used to come up here and work in county government every day and work at the University of Oregon. I moved to Eugene April of 1990 because my husband worked state police. My daughter went to Sheldon, excelling young lady, into finance. Graduated from the University of Oregon School of Journalism in 2018. 2 days later, after graduating, work in New York, work in Manhattan, live in Brooklyn.
That's my hometown.
So she loves it there. She's a exceller. She's a high achiever. I'm very proud of her because I was the first of 12 to graduate high school and the first of 12 to graduate college. I didn't have to have that conversation with her about education, about what to do and how to excel. What I did have a conversation with her about is being black and beautiful. She says first grade. I still say it was second grade at Gillum Elementary School. But a child don't forget. She still to this day said, Mom, that was first grade. But for some reason, I think it was second. But she probably knows. It probably was first grade because I don't forget my childhood of Ku Klux Klan in Louisiana. But the little white boy, Zach, told her in her classroom, being the little black girl of her classroom, you don't get a paper because you're black. She snatched it from him, told the principal. Principal told her teacher, Miss Lundquist. They took it to Miss Teresa Smith, the principal at Sheldon at the time, and they dealt with it. But they called me to let me know what had happened. And I thought my daughter would go home and tell her dad, because when she would get home from school, the first parent she'd see was her dad. Called my dad and said, "Do you want to tell you what happened at school today?" He said no. Told him what happened, and I said, "Call her into the room," because I was still sitting at my office over there at the sheriff's office. And I said, "Why didn't you tell your dad what happened?" And she said, "Because I handled it." And she was just a little girl. But she felt she handled it, that she did not need to tell her parents. I felt good about that. From the time I was in school, I think it has changed where there are more blacks that was in school, but I was the only one in my class of 85. As far as my daughter, I think there's more open experience of what little black kids experience. I hear a lot of little black kids being called the N-word in school and being looked down on, or don't play with her because she's black. And I'm an elected official for K through 12, 16 school districts here. So I have a passion for education. It's very important. But I have a passion for equity too, and that all kids have the ability to achieve. And so I think she had a better education than she probably would have had in Louisiana if I'd have stayed there and had a child, although early learning is ahead in Louisiana compared to Oregon, because the mothers have so many kids, they probably just send them off to Head Start, and they want them to get in school early. But compared to when I was here, I didn't have someone in my classroom to do that says, "You don't get your paper because you're black." I mean, I was in high school then, but I had a lot of them that embraced me as if it was an experience to be around someone that looked different from them in high school. So I had a lot of people that wanted to be my friend, a lot of whites that wanted to be my friend. I've had one major incident in the community where I was called the N-word. And I was going into Fred Meyer's, and it was years ago, and the guy sort of like, I was like right behind him, and he closed the door. He was not going to hold the door for me to be open or let me catch the door or anything. And he just go, "Nigger." And I about lost it. I do believe in peace. I don't believe in violence. But that day, that something came over me that I turned around. Because when he said "nigger," he went in, but he went over to a phone booth. And I went behind and said, "What did you say?" And he looked at me, and I just like, "What did you say?" "Say it again." And there was such a rage, I probably would put my hands on him if he would have said it again. That's how much, to this day, I still think about it. And I know with no doubt I would have did something to him, and it wouldn't have been nice. But he didn't say it again. And as I walked off, I could just feel my heart. I knew I probably would have almost killed him. I had never experienced any rage in my life like that. There was a rage over me that I cannot explain. And I tell people, you have no idea what racism does to the human spirit. You have no idea. I love people. The peoples I've stood up for in unjust in prison, they were white. They were white inmates being beaten. I see people as a human being, and I love people. And I don't understand how a human can do that to other people and have such hate in their hearts. But that is stuff passed on generation after generation. A lot of that hate is passed on generation, and it's a powerful thing that they don't want to let go. They don't want to see that we are human, just like they are. And it's an education thing, and someday I hope those that have such hate see the light. Because their kids and their grandkids are coming to love and fall in love with people that don't look like them. And I would hate for my daughter, which I know she's dating the white guy right here, I'd hate for her to fall in love and love someone when their family don't accept her because of her skin color. I often thought some of that ignorance was just in the South, but it's everywhere. Voting means a lot to me. 4 years ago in 2016, a lot of the black community throughout the world was saying don't vote because they didn't want Trump, nor did they want Hillary. I sit in my car under the parkade as I left work, and I said, no, I'm gonna vote. That's my right, and I'm gonna vote because we didn't have the right to vote at one point in this world. And I'm gonna exercise my right, and I voted. So voting is very important. And I want more and more blacks in the South. Louisiana is a red state. A lot of my family don't even bother voting down there. But they need to wake up. They need to learn the importance of voting. And when you don't vote, we keep people you don't want in office.
Do you think that has changed in the last 4 years?
I think it's showing that it's changed now. It looks like Georgia got some results. We can make systematic change with voting, and we can make systematic change with local officials here. A lot of it starts in your own backyard here. A lot of these government policies and stuff, we got to get people in office here. We got to get people that's having a heart to want change. You want to change the police reform or police force, you got to get the people in office to make that change. Yeah, because that's bad apples in every department when it comes to government. Yeah, the powers to be don't want to let that power go. And the powers to be is the reason we're in this situation we're in today. This didn't just happen to happen. It was the powers to be that are the powers in control today that do not want to let that power go. And until we as a people come together and learn to love and see where there needs to be change and take a stand for change, it's not going to happen. And when these government agencies and these powers to be, they know how to pick their token. I've never seen people that was born and raised here, that you have the pioneer families here, but there's a lot of them that are born and raised here that won't speak up, won't take a stand. You'll see a lot of people that being advocates in this community for change that are not even born and raised here. You have Lily Parker here, she'll speak up. She's a pioneer family. You have some of the pioneer families, but not in the rage like the people from the outside that comes from the South, that comes from other country, that comes from other, that have walked it, that have experienced what it's really like and want change. I don't understand how some who have been born and raised here, maybe they just haven't experienced it. Maybe it just haven't got down in their soul yet. Maybe they haven't touched one of their childs yet. Or maybe they haven't got a life incident in their life that makes them want to change. You got to want it, and you got to have compassion for it, and you got to see human as human. We're still working on trying to get black community to be unified.
Yes.
That's a dividing, and that's a divide and conquer. And the powers to be likes that. They have their token. They put these boards up. They put these advisory committees up, and then they put these tokens on that. That's gonna get nothing done, which is what they don't want. Change. They want the people to think. See, we'll having meetings with enough meetings, and that's why some communities of color, blacks, don't get involved because, we've talked about that before. Well, it's time for the young generation now. There's a movement for young people. And there's a movement for the elders to motivate and advocate for the young people to go for change, to take a stand, to have a voice, to speak up where needs to be spoken up. There's a time to be silenced and there's a time to speak. And don't look down on the one that's speaking up. If you can't do it, sit down and shut up. Don't mark the one that's doing it. Help them, lift them up, move forward. The change, when the change come about, is for the good of all. It's for the good of our children. And when I say our children, I'm talking all kids. We as adults are responsible for all kids in this community, and that nobody be oppressed, including the kids' parents shouldn't be oppressed neither. But we caring adults are responsible. And you got some that they just gonna stay because, first of all, they in love with money. So if they think it's gonna hurt them, and you pay me, I'll shut up. You pay, no, then you don't know justice. You gotta love justice, and you gotta love to not be bought out. See, some people can compromise, but some people got integrity. You ain't gonna compromise me. No, I don't sell my soul to the devil. I love people. Therefore, I have no problem speaking up. And I don't care if you like me or hate me. That's your problem. That tells me you envy me because you're jealous. Or you don't have the spirit of fight in you that I have. I want my people, our people, the people, that have the spirit of fight for the good of all. To not stand back and see anyone done wrong. As a community, I think we are obligated. We should be obligated to that. A principle of life is that we don't see no one oppressed. I just wish when this is all said and done with our elections, it's not going to be easy. Oregon is one of the most racist states in the U.S. It won't be easy. There will be some backlash. The most fear I have is for my daughter and young kids in this world. And what happens when we, who are the elders, are gone? Are not just elders, we who the people that didn't take a stand and try to make a change to give them that good quality of life, and so that they not have to experience hate. And we need allies. Black people can't do it by themselves. It's not enough here. We need the movement. We need good allies. We don't need fake allies that say they are, but then they're not there. And I don't mean you have to go out and protest. We need it in the grunches where the policies, where the change gotta come about. Protesting is fine, but that ain't changing anything. Marching is fine, but it ain't gonna change anything. You gotta sit at the table where the policies are being made. You gotta have our voice at the table. And when these policies are being made, they impact marginalized group, somebody gotta be there because the powers that be that's implementing these policies, they're not thinking of the marginalized group. They're not even thinking how it's gonna impact them because you know what? They don't care. No good politician in office isn't gonna have to have some differences and make some difficult decisions. They need to be able to make difficult decisions for the good of the people and say, hey, I'm in this position because of the people that voted me in. I have to look out for the best interests of the people and not be rubbing elbows in suits, sitting at the table or sitting around the table, making decisions but never speak up when you know that's going to impact the marginalized group. You know that's going to impact the Black community. You know that's going to impact the Latino community. You know that's going to impact the low income. You know, and that impacts everybody. There's whites too. Low income, in situations that is not as fortunate as others. I'm talking about you have to look at people as a whole. And there's people that get in these positions elected, they say everything they want you to hear and what they need you to hear to get your vote. But then they get in office and nothing happens.
Thank you.